Have you ever felt like your finances were so broken that only a miracle could restore them? That was my reality for a long time. I lived trapped in a cycle of debt, anxiety, and impulsive decisions that pushed me further and further away from financial stability. But what seemed like irreversible ruin became the beginning of a deep restoration, not just economic, but also spiritual and emotional. Welcome to this transformational testimony about how financial restoration is truly possible, even when everything seems lost. In this video, I want to share my personal story with you, unfiltered, honest, and filled with the hope that it might inspire you to begin your own journey toward financial healing. This is not just about numbers, budgets, or strategies. It's about recognizing the power of faith, humility, and obedience in the midst of chaos. Today, I'll tell you how I reached the lowest point in my financial life, what mistakes I made, how I faced the consequences, and most importantly, how I found a way out that not only helped me regain control, but taught me how to live with purpose. You'll see how I went from despair to peace, from disorder to order, and from scarcity to provision. This video is designed to give you clarity, to show you that hope is real, and that you are not alone on this path. Throughout this story, you'll see visuals of landscapes, rivers, mountains, and cities that reflect the restoration process, from storm to calm, from dry ground to fertile fields. Each visual scene will serve as a metaphor for the inner transformation I experienced, and that you can experience too. Get ready to hear a real story, with difficult moments, courageous decisions, and a transformation that only became possible when I chose to surrender and trust. If you've ever felt stuck, confused, or hopeless about your finances, this video is for you. No matter how deep the hole, there is always a ladder to the light. And that ladder begins with one decision. The first step toward restoration was admitting I was financially broken. That wasn't easy to accept. For years, I convinced myself everything was under control, that debt was normal, that financial stress was just part of adult life. But the truth was, I was living in denial. I spent more than I earned, had no budget, and every month felt like a race against time just to cover the basics. I felt trapped, like I was swimming upstream in a river that never stopped. That's when I realized this wasn't just about money, it was about a deep disconnect between my decisions and my values. Like the prodigal son in Luke chapter 15, I had to hit rock bottom to come to my senses. Verse 17 says, "When he came to himself, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger?'" That line struck me like lightning. I realized I was living far below what God had planned for me, not because of a lack of resources, but because of a lack of wisdom. That was my turning point. The moment I stopped justifying my mistakes and started seeking a real way out. The second step was starting from scratch, with humility and order. It wasn't magical or instant. It was slow, but necessary. I began by writing down every expense, no matter how small. I sat with a notebook and pen and faced the reality of my numbers. I discovered that many of my purchases were impulsive, emotional, and unnecessary. I learned to say no to things I used to consider normal. I canceled subscriptions, sold items I didn't use, and began prioritizing the essentials: food, shelter, health, and a small savings. Proverbs chapter 21 verse 5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty." That word, diligent, became my compass. It wasn't about doing a lot, but about doing the right things consistently. I started using envelopes to divide my money, planning my purchases, and avoiding new debt. Every small step was a victory. And although it seemed insignificant at first, over time I began to see results. I slept better. I felt more at peace. And most importantly, I regained hope. The third step was activating my faith and obeying financially. This is where many people hesitate, thinking faith and finances don't mix. But for me, it was the opposite. When I began to trust that God was my provider, not just my effort, everything changed. I didn't stop working or planning, but I did it with a new perspective. I started setting aside a portion of my income to give, even when it felt small. I practiced generosity, not from abundance, but from obedience. I remembered the story of Joseph in Egypt. A young man sold into slavery who, because of his faithfulness, ended up managing the resources of an entire nation. In Genesis chapter 41 verse 40, Pharaoh says to him, "You shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word." That story taught me that obedience opens doors that talent alone cannot. I learned to live with purpose, to see money as a tool, not a goal. And slowly, my life began to align with principles that bring peace, not just prosperity. Throughout this journey, there were hard days. Moments when I wanted to give up, when it felt like nothing was changing. But every time I looked back, I saw how far I'd come. And that gave me strength to keep going. Today, I can say my finances have been restored, not because I have millions, but because I have peace, order, and purpose. And to me, that's worth more than any number in a bank account. Today we've walked through a story of brokenness, humility, and restoration. You've seen how financial chaos can become an opportunity to reconnect with your values, your purpose, and your faith. You've learned that restoration isn't just about money, it's about decisions, discipline, and trust. You've heard how the first step is to accept the truth, the second is to organize with diligence, and the third is to trust that God can open doors where there were only walls. If anything I shared today resonated with you, I want you to know you're not alone. We all face moments of financial confusion and emotional overwhelm. But we also all have access to restoration. No matter how deep the hole, there is always a way out. And that way begins with one decision: to surrender, to trust, and to act. Financial restoration isn't just possible, it's within reach. And you can begin today. Before we close, I want to leave you with a short prayer that carried me through the hardest parts of my journey. Lord, I surrender my finances, my decisions, and my fears to you. Help me live with wisdom, purpose, and peace. Teach me to trust, to obey, and to steward diligently what you've placed in my hands. May every step I take be guided by your light. Amen. If this message helped you in any way, I invite you to follow this account, turn on notifications, and leave a comment. Your interaction not only supports this message, it can also inspire someone else who's searching for a way out. Every time you share, react, or comment, you're planting hope in someone else's life.